Started. Welcome to our Monday, July 19th meeting of the Mayor and Council with special mood lighting this evening for everybody. We had a power surge today, and it knocked out the lights in this chamber, and so we're dealing with that. We've got some temporary lighting, but we'll make it through. Tonight, we're pleased to have Deacon Eric Rucker from the International Gospel Outreach Church at 1101 Windy Hill Road. Deacon, if you'll come up and do the invocation and pledge, everybody please rise.
First, giving honor to God and our Lord Jesus Christ, Mr. Mayor, those who sit at the council, men and women of the council. Thank you for this opportunity tonight. Father, we do, first of all, thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for this opportunity that we have to gather together as those who you have raised up to have a heart to serve, as those who you have raised up with a mind and a will, strength and abilities to do that which is pleasing in your sight. Tonight we ask for wisdom and understanding and a keen sense of discernment as men and women gather here tonight to govern over this great city of Smyrna that you have brought up for such a time as this to be a light and life in the earth. We thank you for everything that is done, that all that they set their hands to do will prosper. We bless their families. We bless them in good health and strength, and may they continue to prosper and serve in your service for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deacon, for being with us tonight. Appreciate you being here. Item 2 is agenda changes. We do have one. Item 2A is to add an item to formal business regarding a public hearing for the 2021 millage rate. This has been posted per all legal requirements for the last couple of weeks. We had a staff member out of town, and so it didn't get added to the agenda, so we're just adding it to the agenda. So I will need a motion and a second to add this item to the agenda, please. Moved by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Pickens. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. Thank you. That'll be item G under formal business. Tonight for the mayoral report, I'm pleased to announce that the Smyrna Little League 10U division went down to Augusta and brought back a state championship. So I'm proud of those players and the team, and we'll have them at a council meeting to recognize them appropriately after school starts. And also, the Smyrna Sharks won their Cobb County West Division gold champions, and they sent 66 kids to the state championship. So we got a lot of good things going on in youth sports in the city of Smyrna. The other thing I wanted to announce is I appointed a task force made up of citizens and council members to make recommendations on the details for the green space that will replace the roundabout and fountain that have been approved. That committee will meet and answer questions and make recommendations like what's the width of the sidewalks, what is the landscaping going to look like, where's the trees going to be planted, all of those types of light poles and benches and all those kind of things. They will meet a couple of times, make recommendations, and then we'll have public hearings to get input and then make any adjustments necessary to make sure that we get that space right for everybody. That concludes my mayoral report. We have land issues, zonings, annexations, a few items on here. Item A is 2021-297. This is a public hearing, a no vote item. Zoning request Z21-002. Allow annexation and rezoning from NS Smyrna and ONI Cobb County to MU conditional for the development of a mixed-use project, 8.7 acres, land lot 880 and 881, 2800 and 2810 Spring Road, Rass Associates, LLC. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting annexation and rezoning, again, of 2800 and 2810 Spring Road from NS, Smyrna, and OI, Cobb County, to MU conditional for the development of a mixed-use project with 300 multifamily units, 188 hotel rooms, and 37,500 square feet of commercial, at a density of 34.5 units per acre. The Planning and Zoning Board voted to recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 at the June 14th, 2021 meeting. Community Development recommends approval of the annexation and rezoning from NS and OI County to MU conditional on 8.7 acres for a 300-unit multifamily building at a density of 34.5 units per acre, hotel with 188 rooms and 37,500 square feet of commercial retail. The rezoning meets many goals and policies in the comprehensive plan in Spring Road LCI, which serve to support housing diversity in the area and provide a catalyst to future development. Community Development recommends approval, including those variances supported by staff, which are included in the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This is in Ward 1. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Glenn Pickens, and I bet he'll ask for Rusty's.
Yep, Rusty, can you please give your presentation?
All right, I'll give you good evening. Thank you all for having me here. I'm Rusty Martin. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Smyrna. This request is an annexation and rezoning request for a piece of property located at Spring Road and Cumberland Boulevard and I-285. This request went to the Planning and Zoning Board on June 14th. That board made a recommendation of 5-0 for approval of the proposed project. This request is located at 2800 and 2810 Spring Road. 2800 is in the city of Smyrna. That's the little shopping center with the Chin Chin restaurant and the little grocery store. The three office buildings to the rear along 285, those buildings are that property is currently in unincorporated Cobb County. The strip center has a zoning of neighborhood shopping. The office development has a zoning classification of office institutional in the county. The applicant is proposing to demo the entire site, and then they're proposing to build a 188-room, 8-story hotel, a 300-unit multifamily development, and 37,500 square feet of retail and commercial space. They're proposing to rezone the property to mixed-use conditional. The subject property and the surrounding property have a future land use designation of regional activity center. That's both in the city, and they have regional activity center designation in the county as well. So no future land use map change is required for this rezoning. This is the proposed site plan. Within the MU zoning district along Spring Road, you'll see the commercial space for the development. They're requesting setbacks of a front of 0, side of 0, and rear of 0. The multifamily is to the south of the property and then along I-285. They have setback requirements of a front of 20, side of 15, and a rear of 35. This retail building along Spring Road is 16,000 square feet. The one next to it is about 11,000 square feet. And then there's an additional approximately 9,000 square feet with the multifamily, and then a smaller little kiosk of about 600 square feet. This location is the 8-story hotel. It's a full-service hotel. It has 7,500 square feet of meeting space and ballroom space. It will also have a rooftop food and beverage venue, and then along with it, it'll have the amenities of a full-service hotel with a fitness room, business center, and so forth. This hotel will also be on top of a parking deck. So the first floor of the hotel will be in line with the plaza and commercial space along Spring Road. So as the property drops off, the parking deck accommodates that drop off, and the hotel's main entrance will be at the same elevation as the commercial space. This is the location of the multifamily building. It is a 5-story building that, as you move down the site, it lowers down. So from the lowest point to the highest point, it's 8 stories, but overall within each segment, it's only 5 stories in height. They're proposing 300 residential units. 65% of those are one bedroom or studios, 30% are 2-bedroom, and 5% are 3-bedroom. It will also have a pool and community space as well. With the commercial space, there's also a plaza area for outdoor dining and other amenities. In addition to that plaza, in between the commercial space and the multifamily, there's a small pocket park for that area as well. Along the commercial space, it's all surface parking, and then there is parallel parking along the multifamily, which then leads into a parking deck that is wrapped by the multifamily building. There's 546 spaces in that deck, and then underneath the hotel, there's 317 parking spaces. With this request, there is sidewalk throughout the development and along Spring Road that provides pedestrian connection throughout the development. In addition, they have provided for landing spots for the proposed pedestrian bridge connections from over 285 and then going over Spring Road, and that was all part of your Spring Road LCI study. So they have made accommodations for those connections and have provided so in the plan. With this request, there's also stormwater management. There's one in this little green space and then one within the access way between the hotel and the multifamily. With this request, there's several variances. The first is to reduce the rear setback from 100 feet to 35 feet. The next is to increase the building height from 66 feet to 95 feet. The next is to increase the density from 25 units to 34.5 and reduce the minimum floor area from 900 feet down to 811. These are the elevations of the proposed multifamily building. And this is the multifamily building from the view from 285, where you can see the deck and everything. As you can see, they've incorporated architectural features around the deck with facade materials and parapets and everything else to make sure that deck looks like it's part of the actual building and not standing out on its own. And then on the bottom, they have shown some other potential architectural features that they may include. These are the proposed elevations of the retail space. And then the renderings and elevations for the hotel. This is a picture of the subject property. So you got the strip center and then the office buildings. And then pictures of the adjacent properties. As I alluded to before, this property is a significant property due to its location with respect to the Spring Road LCI master plan. This plan is pulled directly from that corridor plan. And as you can see, it was calling for a high-density mixed-use development with some open space as well as the connections for the bridge connections from Cumberland Mall to the site, and then from the site over Spring Road to the Nally Lexus site. That was within the Spring Road LCI plan. That's called the baseline, and it basically creates a connection from the battery to the Galleria to the mall, and then back into Smyrna. So they were able to accommodate that and make sure that we at least have the opportunity to make those connections in the future. And there's the bridge connections on the plan. Community Development recommends approval of the rezoning from NS and OI to MU conditional on 8.7 acres for the mixed-use development with the following conditions. The first deals with the composition of the buildings and the mixture of elements. Number 2 requires a 10% reduction in a 100-year storm event. Number 3 requires utilities to be underground. Number 4 requires the developer to be responsible for any traffic improvements deemed necessary by the city engineer. Number 5 requires the development of any streets to meet the city's standards. Number 6 prohibits burying of debris on site. And 7 requires decorative street lights through the development. 8 requires the developer to meet the city's tree ordinance. 9 requires that tree plan to be done by a Georgia landscape architect. And 10 requires any other areas to be sodded and landscaped as appropriate. Then we added some special conditions. 11 are the setbacks for the non-residential property. 12 are the setbacks for the multifamily. 13 limits the height to 95 feet. 14 requires the apartments to be built to a class A first class manner, which requires interior finishes, and they're all listed here. I'm not going to run through them all, but basically they need to be built to condo standards and have owner-occupied type finishes as opposed to rental type finishes. The 16 limits the residential component to 300 units. 17 requires the average floor area to be 811 square feet. 18 requires right-in, right-out access for Spring Road at both entrances. 19 requires a deceleration lane be provided on Spring Road. 20 allows for the full access drive on Spring Hill Parkway. 21 requires a minimum roadway width of 24 feet from back of curb to back of curb. 22 calls for transit improvements along with the bus stop for that area. So when we get to permitting, we'll coordinate with CCT and make sure if they want to do a bus stop there that we get the correct improvements. 23 requires the road and utility infrastructure to be private. 24, the developer shall meet all fire access requirements. 25 requires the developer to meet all water and sewer requirements. And 26 requires the developer meet all stormwater improvements. 27 requires the sidewalk connection and sidewalks throughout the development. 28 requires the developer to provide a dedicated property for the landing areas for the pedestrian bridge. And 29 also calls for the pedestrian connection in the multifamily garage. There shall be no gating within the development. That's 30. And 31 ties the building elevations for the multifamily to the ones that you saw here today. And 32 ties the building elevations for the hotel to the elevations you saw today. And 33 ties the retail elevations to the ones you saw today. And finally, 40 ties the whole rezoning to the site plan submitted. So if they make any changes, any significant changes, they got to come back to you to get those changes approved With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions from the council for Rusty? I have one. That rooftop food and beverage, is that open on the hotel? Is that open to residents and the public, or is that just for guests? Or
My understanding is open to the public. I think Garvis can probably give you the exact answer on that.
okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I just have one quick one. Rusty, when you said it's like 30 or the retail size square footage, can you give us like a practical, just let us know like what would fit in that so we can get a better understanding of that
I guess
size?
the best would probably be it's comparable to what's at Jonquil Village with respect to the floor area
Okay.
of the buildings.
The outer buildings?
Yeah, the outer buildings without the Publix shopping center, or without the Publix.
Rusty, if we could just, this is a big project, right? It would be impactful for the city. And it does check, hit on a lot of the 2040 comprehensive plan, right? So it does satisfy a lot of those long-term goals there. And, I'll just, take a minute to mention a few of them. Economic development, encourage housing diversity, quality of life. So it's a project that, it does goes a long way in meeting some aspects of the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Right, and along with that, the Spring Road LCI, both of those plans, the LCI plan was done before the comprehensive plan, so the components of the LCI plan were built into the comprehensive plan once we finished all that. And both the county and the city in our comprehensive plans visualize this as a high intensive area where you have mixed use development, where you have the ability to live, work, and play in the same area. So this is within walking distance of the Battery, and then hopefully when we get the bridges, it'll be within walking distance of the Galleria and the mall and everything else, and it all makes sense. But we've had multiple plans come before this one, and you can probably ask Garvis when he gets up here, but we've held tight to the LCI plan and making sure that we're getting something that we envisioned within that plan as closely as possible. And we didn't, this is not the first iteration of this. We've been working on this site probably since 2008. We denied an application that was sort of similar to this with the uses, but it was not as well designed. And we denied that in 2017. So there's been a lot of work and a lot of discussion and input on this project.
Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, Rusty, can you, just for a point of clarification, I know there was a slide a moment ago on the baseline concept with the various bridges where two of the, I believe, 4 or 5 have been. What is the status of that? I know as I understand it, the developer's only responsible for the landing sites, but just for the benefit of the room and those listening, what's the status on that?
Right now, we are currently working on, in conjunction with the CID, on the bridge from over Cobb Parkway. They've come up with a design. We're basically filing for a grant approval to be able to construct that bridge. These other 2 bridges right now, they are in our plan, but I mean, we'll have to, when the time's right, to move forward with them and try to get them going. We'll have to come back and do that. There's sort of, with the managed lanes on 285, we'll have to see how that all plays out. So I don't know that there's necessarily a rush to build the components over 285 until they get their final designs done with that.
Anybody else?
Sure. Does this connect into the pedestrian bridge that goes over the railroad tracks on Cumberland Boulevard, I think?
No, this is just north of that. That's a separate bridge.
Okay. And then on one of those other slides, I saw something that said transit, transit station. Is that on the LCI study, or is that on? Is
No,
that,
there's stops around here, but I don't believe it's a covered facility. So we were looking at possibly, when the site gets redeveloped, bringing it up to the city standards for our new bus stop huts or shelters.
realize it. I didn't know if it incorporated any of the things that are being discussed at the Cumberland Mall area, is what I was kind of thinking about.
We haven't had discussions with CCT on that, so we'll, once we get to the point of starting permitting and everything else, we'll look at where's the appropriate location for the stops and what those stops will look like.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'd like to invite the applicant up, please. We did this lighting just for you, Mr. Sams.
Appreciate that. My wife typically tries to catch this on television, and when Max used to run these things to 1 a.m., she said, "Are you sure you're really at a public hearing?" But anyway, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Garva Sams, and I represent RAS concerning this application for rezoning. Rusty's entirely correct. This actually, discussions on this site started back when Melly Pritchett was in Mr. Pickensey, and then ultimately, or before that, yours. But so this is a highly anticipated boon for the city. It started out a little shaky at first, about 8 or 9 years ago, but it's really gained some momentum. With RAS tonight, I have with me Mr. Rajiv Goswami, and also some of you probably know a famed cardiologist, Mr. Naresh Parikh, who's here with us. There's 2 other partners as well. I don't mean to give them short shrift, but this is the high power group. This is what they do, and that's developments, in addition to being a famed cardiologist, of course. Also have with me tonight Ms. Kate Triplett of Kimley Horn and Mr. Harrison Aiken of Kimley Horn as well. They can talk on all manners of civil engineering questions, traffic, transportation, and any other developmental issues. Rusty told me before the meeting, in fact, he told me earlier this afternoon, he said, keep it short and sweet. I know we're actually literally burning daylight, so I'll do just that. This application was heard, considered, and recommended for approval by the Planning Commission last month. I think there were a couple members missing, but it was unanimous. We appreciated that. We didn't, as I recall, have any public opposition at that hearing. Rusty has done an excellent job in setting this up for you. So, knowing that you do have an agenda and some limited time frames, let me tell you about the one attempt back in 2017. At that time, the owner of the property had gone through bankruptcy. So when he went through bankruptcy, the client I had at the time, West Plan, bought it subject to approval by the trustee of the Federal Bankruptcy Court, which adopted as a part of that bankruptcy order the site plan that was submitted with that zoning 4 years ago. So my client's hands were tied at the time. We couldn't make adjustments, and we couldn't really rise to the level to comport with the LCI study that you adopted back in, I think, April of 2017. This property needs no introduction. It's one of the 4 most important quadrants within the Cumberland Gallerina. It probably it could be the pivotal quadrant, I think, particularly with the aerial pedestrian connectivity, in some instances vehicular pedestrian connectivity. I think down at the Cumberland, down at the Cumberland Galleria area. This is an 8.7 acre tract of land. It's an assemblage of properties or a property in city and in the county. There is no opposition from the county. The county has given a letter of no objection to this. And just so you'll know, I've spoken personally with the community development director there. Also had previous conversations with the zoning manager there in Cobb. So they would have a full understanding of this and could brief the commissioners accordingly, unless something's happened in the past few minutes. As far as I know, we still have recommendation of no opposition from the county. This is an interesting mixed-use development on a number of levels. Number one, it's a true mixed-use development. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see developments parading as mixed-use developments when they have a small isolated component that is retail or commercial and maybe throw in some offices and they're done with it. And then what happens is the multifamily that became a part of that mixed-use development gets developed sometimes to the exclusion or certainly not in sync with the other components of the development. In this particular instance, and you're going to see this more and more here in the city and with other jurisdictions, we've agreed to concurrency of development. That is concurrency of vertical construction. So you're not going to see either the multifamily or either the retail or any of these things come up by themselves. And that's one of our conditions and stipulations of the rezoning. This will include a full-service Hilton hotel. It will be open to members of the public. Any of its amenities are not reserved, except for the swimming pool and things like that that are inherent with you as a resident of that. But the rooftop terrace and the bar and the restaurant area up there is going to be just fantastic. Great views of the Cumberland Galleria area and a destination place for the city of Smyrna. I don't know how many full-service hotels you've seen. This is a Hilton in the past few years, but I suspect not many. So my clients went out, put $75,000 on the line just to be able to utilize the Hilton name, and that's a condition of this zoning, is that be built in accordance with the standards you've seen, the architecture you've seen, and of course it's parked on structured parking. In fact, this is what they call a podium development because of the change in the dramatic change in topo going down from Spring to 285. As Rusty stated, the elevation, the 8 stories, is sort of a compressed elevation if you look at it in juxtaposition to the contours as they go down the hill. So we'll have that. We've got 37,500 of commercial retail space, including 16,000 and 11,000 square foot buildings adjacent to Spring Road. There's a central plaza, as Rusty had mentioned. That's one of the things we didn't have originally, and you wanted to see some community aspect to it, some sort of destination, and we've got that, and we've included a pocket park. And if you're familiar with the Avalon development in Forsyth County, we have 600 square foot jewel box commercial area, which is oriented to and inside the pocket park. So it's really kind of, well, I don't sound like a teenager, but it's kind of cool. It's just really some nice stuff that I don't think the city has seen in a while. There are 300 multifamily units. We've reduced that from the original 350. Rusty gave you the breakdown. There's actually, and he gave it percentage-wise. There will be 53 studio apartments, 140 one-bedroom units, 91 two-bedroom units, and 16 three-bedroom units. So they'll range in size from the studio, a minimum of 567,000 square feet up to 1,350, up to the two bedrooms. So the average of this is going to be right around 870, 900 square feet. There'll be in the multifamily a clubhouse, leasing area, fitness studio, of course, a swimming pool. And it's served, that is the multifamily, by a 7-level structured parking deck, which Rusty showed you is a fairly recent imagery and representation of that, showing that the deck and the multifamily buildings mesh, because I think y'all had either articulated or staff had articulated, we want to make sure we have an impressive view from I-285, and we think we do. This is well served by parking, as you can see, the preponderance of which is structured, but we are at a density of 1.82 parking spaces per multifamily unit, and what you're typically seeing is that's overparked, because 1.75 is what you typically see in ordinances, but more often now multifamily developers are parking at 1.5 because of shared transportation, choices and things of that nature. But we're at 1.82 in terms of the parking spaces per unit. The last stipulation letter we submitted was on May the 4th. And we have, of course, eliminated a lot of other onerous uses that you certainly don't want to see within the high-end mixture of this nature. And to respond to the questions about the aerial connectivity, this is going to be 4 quadrants ultimately are going to be totally and fully connected. I'm conversing to some degree with the conversations with the now Alexis and then the Truist and the folks across the street with the Braves. So I'm not a part of those conversations. I'm just cognizant of it. So what you'll ultimately see is the pedestrian connectivity from Cumberland Galleria to Truist and the Battery to the Nally site, the Nally site to the subject property back to Cumberland Mall. And Rusty articulated a good reason why that may be in kind of flux because of the managed lanes of I-285. And quite candidly, we know they're going to be there, and we've had discussions with GDOT on right-of-way acquisition and things of that nature. So it's not a surprise to us and something we're willing to work with. So this is within a regional activity center in both the county and the city. Your comp plan, the county's comp plan, supports this. No opposition from the county. Cobb Center CID has no opposition to this as far as I know from our earlier conversations with them. So we ask that you follow your staff's and then your planning commission's recommendations for approval, Mr. Mayor, and that for those reasons you approve it tonight. And my clients and consultants and I are here to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sams. One question I have, I know there's a in and out, maybe two right in, right outs off of Spring Road, but there's also on Spring Hill, is that where you anticipate a lot of the residential traffic will go
Yes, sir.
in and out of?
Yes,
I
sir.
know that traffic's been a big concern, and especially on Spring Road, and it's been presented that likely because those residential units are in the back, they won't be coming in and out off of Spring Road. They'll be typically using Spring Hill to get to either Mount Wilkinson or Paces Ferry.
I think you're right, Mr. Mayor. I think they'll avoid circuity of travel for the more direct route. Like I said, I've got Kate Triplett here tonight, who's a civil engineer, but also has boned up on one of her fellow engineers' traffic studies, so she can answer that question. But you're correct. That is primarily where they'll go.
Any questions of Mr. Sams from the council?
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was looking at the square footage of the units, and did you say there is 16 three-bedroom units? Is that what I understood? Do you know the square footage approximately of those?
1,400 square feet.
14, okay.
13 and some high change.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. The layout of this kind of reminds me a little bit of the original iteration of the West Village.
Yeah.
Looks pretty comparable in terms of access and all that stuff. But one thing I was curious about relative to that is visitor parking. I know you have some surface lots, and I presume people will be able to park at the hotel. But I know for some of the other areas where the residential parking is, like over there, the first floor of that is basically wide open access. Will there be sufficient visitor parking to really activate that area appropriately beyond just those surface lots that you have?
Absolutely. The preponderance of this is, Mr. Wheaton is structured parked, but we exceed the parking ratios. We're at, I think, 1.82 or 83, and your typically parking ratios are 1.75. And as I mentioned, from an empirical perspective, apartment developers, multifamily developers are learning that they don't need as much parking with this, but we're overparked for that component, for the multifamily component.
Mr. Sam's got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
A resident asked me today about the impact on schools, and I mentioned that my understanding was quite a few smaller, single bedroom units. But did you look at that aspect of the development?
Yes, sir. We always do that because we always anticipate that from the schools. In fact, I spoke with Mr. Charles Sprayberry with the Cobb County School System. He's no longer in that position now, but when I first filed this, I haven't seen any written objections from the school system, and typically the jurisdictions I work in, they provide those. But that's why there's a paucity of three-bedroom units. Well, number one, that's not our market. And number two, and our market is the traveling public, the high-end traveling public. And frankly, our market is citizens of Smyrna to utilize that hotel and its banquet facilities and its meeting rooms and its restaurant and things of that nature. That was a roundabout way of answering your question, but the school board, as far as I know, has no opposition to this.
Any other questions of Mr. Sams?
Yes, Mr. Sams, I just wanted to, I know Reeve met with the developers and they met with city staff a number of times, and I just wanted to express a thanks for their willingness to change. I know the plan has changed, at least the number of meetings that I've attended, about 4 times, so appreciate their willingness to work with us.
I appreciate you and Mr. Pickens and the mayor and others joining you from time to time at those meetings, because you can meet with staff and you can meet with consultants, but to understand the clear policy of individuals that are on the council is extremely helpful to me or to us.
I think my first meeting as a council member was with you on this item back in 2015, 2016.
I think it was.
It's been a long time
Yes,
in the works, I know.
It has.
Anybody else?
But it hadn't been these guys, though.
Right. That was with a whole different, but lots of meetings
done all the right
on
things.
other plans and
Yes,
different things leading up to this. Any other questions for Mr. Sams? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against this item, I'd invite you to come up now and be sworn in by our city attorney, Scott Cochran. All right. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion, which is item A. We'll move on to item B, approval of annexation requests, ordinance 2021-02. 100% of owners requesting annexation, all tractor parcel number 170-880-00030 of land lying and being in land lots 880 and 881 of the 17th District, 2nd Section, Cobb County, Georgia, total of 7.14 acres, being known as 2800 and 2810 Spring Road, Smyrna, Georgia 30080, will be in effect August 1st, 2021, and part of Ward 1, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Pickens.
Thank you, Mayor. Just before I make a motion, I just wanted to also thank Arvis and his team for working with us. It's been about 1.5 years just on this project, or that I've been involved. So we've made significant changes, and I think we finally got a product that the community will be happy for. And as been said tonight, it's a huge economic investment in our city. I think it's a $125 million project.
We've recalculated it's anywhere between 125 and 137.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And I hope this is something that, as we've seen, like the economic success of the battery, it's finally making its way into our city.
Boy, is it
and it's
ever.
creating a destination where people want to be. And I think it's a place that people will love to hang out. So with that, I'll make the motion to approve ORD 2021-02.
Have a motion seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. The item C is the last item dealing with this, is 2021-007, final vote, zoning request Z21-002, allow annexation and rezoning from NS, Smyrna, and O&I, Cobb County to MU conditional for the development of a mixed-use project, 8.7 acres, land lot 880 and 881, 2800 and 2810 Spring Road, Rass Associates LLC. Mr. Pickens.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make the motion to approve 4C 2021-007.
Have a motion by Mr. Pickens, seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. Thank you. And very good work, Mr. Pickens and Mr. Lindley, on this for many, many weeks, many, many months. Congratulations to y'all. This is going to be a great project. Item D is a public hearing, zoning request Z21-008, rezoning from FC to R8 conditional for the subdivision of 1 lot into 2 lots at a density of up to 4.6 units per acre. Land lot 561 at 2605 Old Roswell Road, Rosalane LLC. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from FC to R8 conditional for the development of 2 single-family detached units at a density of up to 4.6 units per acre. The existing house will remain and 1 single-family house will be built on the new lot. The applicant plans to submit a letter of intent to purchase an adjacent public alley at the perimeter of the lot, which will reduce the density below 4.5 units per acre. The Planning and Zoning Board voted to approve the request by a vote of 5-0 at the June 14th, 2021 meeting. Community Development recommends approval of the rezoning from FC to R8 conditional for the development of 2 single-family units at a density of 4.6 units per acre with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This is in Ward 3. Mr. Lindley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Joey to update us.
All right, good evening. Joey Stobbs, Planner 2 with Community Development. This is rezoning case Z21-008. Applicant is Rose Lane LLC. Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval 5-0 at the June 14th meeting. This is the location of the subject property at 2605 Old Roswell Road. It's just under half an acre. Currently, there's 1 single-family residence on a lot. They are proposing to subdivide that property to keep the existing house and build a new house to the side of the existing house. Existing zoning is future commercial, and the proposed rezoning is R8. This is the future land use map. Everything around this property is moderate density residential. With the acquisition of the alley in the back part, it will remain moderate density residential. This is the proposed site plan. This is the existing lot as it is today. This will be the proposed new lots. You'll have the R8 setbacks of front of 25, side of 5, and rear of 25. The stormwater will be at the front of the property, and it'll have a front entry garage. This is the 15-foot alley. It was used in the past for garbage pickup. It's not used anymore. We were first contemplating allowing them to take half of the whole alley, but there's a landlocked parcel in the back that needs to be reserved. Part of that alley needs to be reserved for that lot to have access. But if you consider half of the back half of that alley, it ultimately reduces the density below 4.5 units per acre. So without the alleyway, you're looking at 4.6 units per acre, but with half of the back alleyway, you're looking at 4.4 units per acre. That is ultimately what we think is achievable. They will come back later to request that right away from the city. There are no variances requested. These are examples of the front elevations and pictures of the subject property and pictures of the adjacent properties. So staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from FC to R8 for development of 2 single-family units at a density of 4.4 units per acre with the following conditions. 1, regarding the architecture. 2, requiring utilities to be underground. 3, developers responsible for traffic improvements. 4, prohibiting debris to be buried. 5 and 6 regarding the tree ordinance and landscape plans. 7, the yards will be sodded, and then 8 is the tree planting schedule. The special conditions begin at 9 regarding the setbacks as read. They're the standard R8 setbacks. 10, that have a minimum lot size of 8,812 square feet. 11, minimum lot width of 50 feet. 12, a minimum driveway length of 22 feet. 13, requiring a 5-foot sidewalk. 14, a maximum height of 35 feet. 15, they're responsible for fire access requirements. 16, water and sewer improvements. And 17, stormwater improvements. 18 is compliance with the site plan submitted. And then 19 regarding the elevation submitted. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joey. Any questions from council? No questions? Is the applicant here? Would you like to come up and say anything?
Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Garvis Sams with Sams Larkin Huff, and Marietta and I represent Rose Lane in connection with this lot split and rezoning as well. It did receive unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and again, I don't believe there was any public opposition to that. Unlike the last zoning, this is a little more direct, a little less complicated, less moving parts, but it's no less important to this applicant or to me or the city. And we think, or I think Joey did a good job of setting it up for you. The property is just right under a half acre, located there at 2605 Old Roswell Road. This is a lot split. It'll have two homes. And a good question from the Planning Commission, well, why not scrape them both and do two new homes? But the home that's remaining will be retrofitted and repurposed and rehabbed. Actually has good bones to it. It's a good house. The applicant is here, and if you want to grill him specifically on why it has good bones, I'll let him talk to you since he's the builder and I'm not, but that's what I'm told. We submitted this back on May 14th, that is the application, and we recognized at the time that we were filing under the future land use map, which is moderate density. And interestingly enough, this property is zoned in future commercial, and I'm not sure the origins of that. Cobb County has that classification too, but what happens is there's a non-conforming residential use that's on there, and it can continue, but if it discontinued, then there's no entitlement, no right to utilize the property under that FC classification, which is kind of like a holding classification. But clearly, this is not future commercial property being located in moderate or medium density areas. I think the grandfathered use is going to be, will go away once we develop this, and that's why we need a zoning classification, and that's why we've asked that it be rezoned out of the FC classification. Joey's right about the alley. We hadn't been able to turn the ownership of the little sort of thin lineal portion of property behind us. So at first we calculated the density when we presented the Planning Commission based upon an abandonment of the alley on both sides. But now staff has relooked at it and said, well, and I think in conjunction with the city attorney, they've discussed it, and whether we know that whoever owns that property behind us or not, we can't landlock it even if this has a specific use for sanitation purposes. It's a subdivision plat that was plotted years and years ago. But in any event, we can do the back. I'll submit a letter of intent to the Mr. Bennett and the city attorney. It'll be on another agenda if you decide to declare it as surplus property, and we have to buy it. You know, obviously, you can't give it to us because of public gratuities laws. We think it's going to be great. And the architecture that you see now, including what we've shown, is actually what's going to be built. I mean, we submitted our last architectural renderings on June the 7th, and we've got the floor plans and all the specifications. You can't get any more definitive than we have on this as to what we're agreeing to. So instead of modestly exceeding the density, we're going to be a little under 4.5, so that means no future land use map change, which we think is good. The way we've calculated the density, it's down from about 4.6 to the way I calculate it. If we had both alleys, it would be 3.79. So I suspect Rusty may have calculated, we're somewhere between 4.2 and 4.4. We've not received any pushback, opposition from area residents or property owners, and we reached out to them before we submitted, and so we simply ask that you follow your staff's and your Planning Commission's recommendation for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sams. Any questions from council for Mr. Sams?
Mr. Sam, just do you have an estimated price point for the homes?
Yes, sir. There'll be fives and ups. Five
Five or more. Yeah, the renderings of them, they look nice.
Yes, sir. They do, and probably more depending on the preferred. These aren't going to be spec, or this is not going to be spec. It's going to be custom.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Sams, so there's going to be the original home is going to be renovated, or is it okay?
It's
But
gonna
it's
be-
still going to be look like one of these
Oh, yeah.
renderings
I
when
mean, yes,
it's
ma'am.
finished. Yeah.
When I say retrofitted, rehabbed, and repurposed, it won't exactly be repurposed. It'll be used for residential, but it'll be repurposed in terms of architecture, which will be consistent with architecture. Have we done a mock-up of that house, how it will look? No, but we have shown you the new residential construction, and we're going to rehab the outside of it. And if you prefer, we can certainly submit that to staff for review and approval. But because I don't have a specific rendering on that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Sams?
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'd invite anybody who wishes to speak for or against this item to come up and be sworn in now. You can find your way up here in the dark. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. This is in Ward 3. Mr. Lindley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no further questions at this time. Move do pass as previously presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Lindley. Do I have a second? By Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. It's approved 7-0. Thank you. Item 5 is privileged licenses. We have none. Item 6 is formal business. 6A, Resolution 2021-04. Approve Resolution 2021-04 to accept the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds and ratify funds already received in the amount of $3,997,773 from the United States Department of Treasury and all future allocations, and to authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. These funds allocated from the American Rescue Plans Act provide a substantial infusion of resources to help turn the tide on the pandemic, address its economic fallout, and lay the foundation for a strong and equitable recovery. And Mr. Bennett, I'll just state that I know that we are receiving close to $7.9 million. This is the first half of that. Staff reported to us that they are releasing the final guidelines for how we can spend this money. They have a good idea of how we can spend it, but that the final has not been released yet. And so we'll have recommendations from staff and a discussion amongst the council about how to address this beginning on August 12th. Mr. Welch, you're our budget chairman. Is there any discussion amongst council first before we turn it over to Mr. Welch? Okay, Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to approve item 6A, resolution 2021-04.
Have a motion, seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. It's approved 7-0. Item B is a simple name change request for an apartment community. It's resolution item 2021-275, request for a name change for 2330 Cobb Apartments located at 2330 Cobb Parkway to 2330 Cobb Parkway LLC, doing business as Elevate at the Battery. This is in Ward 1. Mr. Pickens.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve 6B 2021-275.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. Item C, 2021-276, approval of the City of Smyrna resurfacing through the sole source contract with Donaldson Construction Company, LLC, 1075 Wise Hill Road, Cleaver, Missouri, 65631, in the amount of $921,313.85, $425,936.37 LMIG, and $495,377.48 SPLOST for paving and resurfacing of city streets, and authorize the mayor to execute all related documents. I know we had a thorough presentation on Thursday at our committee of the whole. Mr. Bennett, any background you'd like to provide is great.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The original project was sent out to bid with qualified bids coming in at $1,700,000, which was well over budget. Public Works has researched alternative methods to do more with less funding. With this new method, it will allow the Public Works Department to pave all streets on the resurfacing list this year through the sole source contract with Donaldson Construction Company. Any discussion or comments from the council?
what we've been told is that this will be able to do more resurfacing quicker and for about half the cost. And it's been, they've done a lot of business in the Midwest and they're getting into Georgia. So with that, I'll turn it over to our budget chairman, Mr. Corky Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6C, 2021-276, as previously read and outlined.
Have a motion and a second by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. It's approved 7-0. Our next item is D, 2021-302, award RFP 21-014, door locking systems for Parks restrooms to the lowest qualified bidder, LMI Systems, for $54,686.11, and authorize the mayor to execute any related documents. Mr. Bennett, any background, please?
Yes, sir. Parks and Recreation requested proposals for the upgrading of the automatic door locking systems on park restroom doors in the park system. Two proposals were submitted as follows: LMI Systems for $54,686.11, and Compass Security Systems in the amount of $58,490.99. Parks and Recreation and Purchasing have reviewed the proposals and recommend award of RFP 21-014, door locking systems to the lowest qualified bidder, LMI Systems, and authorize the mayor to execute any related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any discussion amongst council? All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pickens.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to approve 6D 2021-302 as previously read.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor, please vote. That's approved 7-0. Next item is E, 2021-307, approval of the scheduled VRF CIP replacement of two vehicles, number 3079 and 3087, Ford Explorers from the Fire Marshal's Office, utilizing the City of Atlanta contract number 10590-WS from Wade Ford, 3860 South Cobb Drive Southeast, Smyrna, Georgia 30080, for a cost of $69,619, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute any related documents. These are vehicle replacements that are in our approved budget, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Corky Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion to approve item 6E, 2021-307, as previously read.
Have a motion and seconded by Mr. Pickens. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. Item F, 2021-308, approval to purchase 6 equipped Ford Police Interceptor Explorers for the police department as part of the FY22 Vehicle Replacement Fund at a total cost not to exceed $296,000 through Phil Brannon Ford of Perry, 2010 U.S. Highway 41, South Perry, Georgia 31069, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute any related documents. This is also a vehicle replacement that is in the approved budget, and I'll turn it over to our budget chairman, Mr. Corky Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6F, 2021-308, as previously read.
Have a motion, seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. The last item under formal business is item G, 2021-310. This is a public hearing for the 2021 millage rate. There's no vote today. Mr. Bennett, any background, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fiscal year 22 budget approved by council included revenue projections based on 8.99 mills. This is the first of 3 required public hearings before the formal adoption of the 8.99 millage rate. Tax information was received from Cobb County on June 24th, 2021. Per the information provided, the city would need to roll back the millage rate to 8.468 to not advertise a tax increase. In comparison, last year's millage rollback was calculated at 8.728. The official notice and all required information was posted in the Marietta Daily Journal on July 9th. It will be posted again on July 23rd. A press release was sent to the Marietta Daily Journal on July 6th. It has also been posted on our city website. This is the first required public hearing. Additional hearings will be held at 10 a.m. and 6:45 p.m. on August 2nd. The adoption of the millage rate will be an agenda item on the 6:45 meeting on August 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody who wishes to speak on this item, I'd invite you up now to be sworn in by our city attorney. And seeing none, we'll close that public hearing and move on to the next item. Item 7, commercial building permits. We have none. Item 8 is the consent agenda. Mr. Bennett, if you can see it, can you read the consent agenda for council approval?
Yes, sir. The darker it gets, the more
It
difficult
is getting darker in here for sure.
Item A, MIN 2021-44, approval of the July 1st, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Item B, MIN 2021-45, approval of the July 6th, 2021 pre-council meeting minutes. Item C, MIN 2021-46, approval of the July 6th, 2021 mayor and council meeting minutes. Item D, 2021-309, approval of the extension of the termination date to be December 31st, 2021 for the following community development block grant subrecipient agreements. Contract number CV20-V20S8. Amendment number 1 to be effective July 16th, 2021. And contract number CD20-C20SA-A and CD20-C20S8-F. Amendment number 4 to be effective August 1st, 2021. Contract number CD19-C19S8. Amendment number 4 to be effective July 1st, 2021, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Mr. Lindley, I believe, and seconded by Mr. Pickens. Okay, so moved by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Pickens. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is ward and committee reports. We'll start tonight with Mr. Glenn Pickens.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the residents and staff that were at our town hall meeting the other day. We had a great turnout and great discussion as well. And from the feedback I've heard, they've really enjoyed having the town hall and hearing all the updates from staff. So thank you again for coming out.
Mr. Wagner.
I guess ditto, because it was a joint meeting. We got to talk a lot about Campbell Road, had some people talk about downtown, so I think it was a good opportunity and nice to have some more face-to-face interaction with everyone, kind of get out there and hear from everyone, let everyone hear from staff. So thanks to everyone who came, thanks to the staff who was able to come and present. And that's all.
Mr. Lindley.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sort of echoing, yesterday, Councilman Gould and I had a joint Ward 3 and Ward 6 meeting, had well over 100 people here in City Hall on a very hot Sunday afternoon here in the building. But
yeah, the lights worked, but the air...
Yeah, we had lights, but no air. But appreciate everybody coming out. I think it was a robust and good dialogue. Thank you.
Mr. Welch. Ms. Wilkinson.
No report. Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to build on the other comments about the 2 town hall meetings we had, it's a great appreciation to the staff because they do a great job. And we often bring requests from residents to staff, and they're the ones that make the changes or address the issues. So they did a wonderful job presenting, and I really appreciate all that they do. One thing, folks who live on Campbell Road probably noticed today that I think it's closed this week for the installation of a crosswalk at Campbell Middle School. They'll get that back open as soon as possible, weather permitting, and the idea was there to get that done before school starts. So appreciate the efforts of Public Works there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Wheaton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick things for Ward 7 residents. Be on the lookout for the next Ward 7 newsletter coming out probably next week or so. As well, we'll be scheduling a few walks through various neighborhoods in Ward 7 So you'll be apprised of a list of those as well, probably in a separate communication. And just finally, briefly, just to encourage people again to get vaccinated, noting the rates going up again throughout various parts of the state. If you haven't been vaccinated, I really encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. The only other thing I have is to remind everybody about the State of the City address. Next Wednesday, the 28th, it's at 6 p.m. It's at the Community Center in the large gym. It's in coordination with the Cobb Chamber of Commerce. You can register. There's a link on all of our social media, our website, Chamber. It's free. It's a dinner, and we're doing it in the evening so that we can have more access to it. People can have better opportunity to come to it. We're going to stream it, and we'll also have a recording of it on all of our website and social media. So just want to make sure everybody has a chance to listen to the vision and what we've got coming up and be a part of what we're doing. Staff, do y'all have anything this evening? Scott, Penny, Joe? No? Okay. Item 10 is show cause hearings. We have none. Item 11 is citizen input. Ms. Heather, can you give me the list, please, for the folks who have signed up for citizen input this evening? Thank you. We have two. The first is Ms. Jenny Barty, 4041 Laurel Springs Way.
Hi, I'm Jenny Barty at 4094 Laurel Springs Way in Smyrna. And thank you, Mayor and council members. And I just wanted to make a couple quick observations first. It's really cold in here. Every meeting, it's always freezing cold in
It wasn't
here.
yesterday.
It was burning hot yesterday, I know, and there were 100 people. I didn't realize the number, but there were
We
a lot
figure
of
with the
people
lights dim, we need to
Yeah.
keep the temperature low to keep everybody awake.
Maybe that's it. But also, I heard some talk about buses and transit, and I just wanted to point out that, I mean, when I leave my my home and I go along South Cobb Drive, I mean, it's just horrible that people are standing out. There's no cover, there's no shelter over most of the bus stops, and that is an immediate thing that I think needs to be rectified. I think that there's plans to there's a new contract with the people that advertise on the bus. The different bus stops, but I just think that's a real critical thing. It's just it's very inhumane to have people standing out at bus stops exposed to the weather and not even to have a bench, just a stick in the ground. But anyway, what I came to talk about, I just wanted to thank you, Mayor, and council members for having some public input, for having these meetings this last week, and for listening to the public. And I just wish that there had been more of that chance for public input prior to this downtown redevelopment plan. I want to ask if you really, in your heart of hearts, think that a brewery is in the public interest. I just can't see it, and most people I know can't see how that's possibly in the public interest. It's in the moneyed interest, but it's not in the public interest. The mayor has a fiduciary obligation to be on behalf of the public, okay? The public interest, what is good for our community, and I don't think that this meets that threshold. I also wanted to talk about yesterday. In yesterday's meeting, somebody asked if there was ever a proposal for a different spot for the brewery. I don't know if there was for this particular brewery. Mr. Mayor, you said there was not, and I'll take that at face value, but I think there have been other proposals for breweries around the city, and I know that there has been one for Williams Park. And I don't understand, the citizens would not allow it in Williams Park. And I just think it's kind of unfair. I really think that, Williams Park is a great historic neighborhood. It's beautiful. There are some still standing beautiful old houses,
Ms.
but
Barty,
most of them
Ms.
have
Barty,
been
your
removed.
time has expired. I just want to let you go ahead and finish
it
your
already
thought.
has? Oh,
go ahead and
gosh,
finish your thought.
That was
but
really
you're-
quick. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Well, I wanted to point out that I just don't think it's fair to have some communities that are better represented in that things get turned down. I mean, it was a done deal before. We were told I had heard that it was a done deal to have that brewery, and then suddenly it was gone.
Thank you, Ms. Barty.
Thank you.
Next is, I'm not sure, it's Mayfield is the last name, I can't read the first name, 2814 Hillside Road. Ms. Mayfield, come on up. What is your first name, ma'am? Joan.
Joan, or Joni, or...
Well, we'll just call you Miss Mayfield. Thank you for being here. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was interested in the idea of the brewery by the community center. And the community center is for kids of all ages. Yes, some young people do some things there, older people. And the kids don't need to come out and see a brewery right there. You got alcoholic places other than right by where the teenagers or the younger people come out, and it's the wrong place for a brewery. And we need the greenery where it is, and I guess that's it.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We don't have anybody else signed up for public comment. I will say that the proposed brewery is a family-friendly facility, and it's got a park proposed next to it. Again, we're in the beginning stages of this and got a long way to go, but I appreciate the passion that everybody has on both sides of this issue, and I'm hopeful that we will bring it forward, and I think it'll be great for the community. The last item, where am I at? Do I have anything else on the, let's see. Yeah, the last item, if we don't have any other business to be brought before this body, we'll adjourn this meeting at 8:18. Thanks.